Hey guys, this is Courtney from Will's Bloom, and this is the AstroBiz podcast where we talk about astrology and business. And Will's Bloom is the parent of this podcast, and it's all about intentionally designing our life and business with the cosmos. Hey guys, I'm so excited to welcome our guest today, Tess Wicks. She is a business mentor for money coaches, and she is killing it in the money industry because she has all the tools to help you unlock your subconscious mind and all the limiting beliefs you're having around money. And she's going to share those tips with you guys today. So, thank you so much, Tess, for coming on and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So I would love to start off with your story. How did you get started in, the finances and business, and how did you end up to where you are now?
Oh, such a good question. And it's honestly been a winding road. Although probably not as surprising to people who eventually hear my full story because I really did, I graduated from college. I was studying a major that was really set for the financial industry. I was studying actuarial science, which a lot of people don't really even know what an actuary is. I didn't even know that when I was studying it. I was just like, sounds like a mystery, and I feel like I'll get to wear a suit. So let's do it. And so I took this route to, become a professional and climb the corporate ladder. And I really like my goal was to become a CEO of an insurance company, which now to me is like, oh my gosh, that's so boring. But I'm sure some CEOs have a great time. So I took this route and I did a lot of studying. I really committed to this career path for myself because that's just kind of what you do when you get into that world. And I started my career in consulting and pretty quickly realized that this was not what I wanted to do. I remember actually when I was in college and I had an internship through the school year, and I would go and like work on insurance problems. And I was like, is this what real life is like? Because I unsubscribe. I don't want to do this. And I was like, well, it'll be different when I'm a consultant. Like life will be different. I'll be in the city, it'll be exciting. And it was different, but it was still very much the same in regards to like the lifestyle or even like the general fulfillment aspect. And I was really lucky in college to be exposed to this group of people, which sounds like a cult, but I was really just attending a talk by someone who became a mentor for me who was doing public speaking about personal finance. But he held a conference where he brought it together a bunch of young leaders. And although it wasn't specifically an entrepreneurial conference, the focus was very much entrepreneurial because the people that were hosting the conference were entrepreneurs and the people that came to talk were entrepreneurs. And so it just was very organically more focused on like young leaders who want to build their own businesses someday. And that's what exposed me to the world of entrepreneurship because prior to that, when I was in school, very committed to this career of being an actuary, I remember being in a class and this one kid, it was like a general class, one of the first ones we had to do like freshman year. This one kid was like, "Oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur." And I was like, "What the hell is that?" Which is funny because my dad is an entrepreneur. But I like was like, "No, everyone's dad owns a construction company and like works and gets dirty and like comes home with concrete on his pants." But no, that's not the case. We just think our whole growing up is like everyone else's experience. But anyway, I digress. I never thought I would be an entrepreneur, is what I'm trying to say. And so when I went into the real world and got my real job and was going to the office and living the city life and wearing my suit, that's when I also quickly realized that pieces of me were kind of chipping away. And I was really lucky to have met my roommate at the time, who I met through that conference while I was in college. And so we decided to live together in Chicago, which is where we were living. And she kind of exposed me even more and more to this world of entrepreneurship and kind of time and even some financial freedom. Because in the corporate world, what you can earn is very much capped. And I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. I remember like leaving for work and seeing her just like sitting on the couch, drinking her coffee, soaking in the sunlight, reading a book. And I was like, I would give my left thumb to just stay home and read a book at 9 a.m. Um, and so I mean, you would think like I quit my job, I knew I wanted to help people with money, but really I quit my job because I just couldn't take it anymore. And I had the financial foundation of savings, and I had like kind of hacked together my living situation. I bought my home about 9 months before quitting my job. So my roommate was paying me rent, which was covering my living expenses. And so I was just kind of like exploring my options, because up until that point, I thought that all I could do was be an actuary. So, although I had a lot of exposure to the financial world, I didn't really think I could do anything on my own in the world of finance. But of course, things happen. Before I quit my job, I had started a podcast with my roommate and another friend of ours. It's called She Did It Her Way, and it's still a very popular podcast. I'm no longer involved, but it is an amazing show. And I was starting to experience what content creation was. Through She Did It Her Way, I met a woman who owns a content marketing firm. She was very much in the startup phases at that time, and she took a leap of faith with me and brought me on to do content strategy. Again, had no idea I could do any of that stuff either, but we worked together, and I helped her write blog posts and social media for other companies. And that gave me a lot of confidence to start my own podcast, which at the start was the Words and Money podcast. Then it turned into Wander Wealthy. At first, it was just doing personal finance for women. Then it was finance for businesses. And now it's business coaching for aspiring, new, or frustrated money coaches. So I've gone down this winding road, and like even coaching wasn't obvious to me until someone literally reached out to me and was like, "Do you help people with their money or do you just talk about it?" And I was like, "Interesting." Like obviously I was helping people through talking about it, but they wanted the hands-on approach. And so I just slowly built my coaching business from there, became a money coach. And I wish it was as easy as just like, then I was booked out, but it was a process, which eventually I was able to become booked out, made a ton of mistakes along the way. And now more recently, I've chosen to help more money coaches not make those mistakes, reach a booked out status in way less time, and really validate that, where they're at, where they're, whatever they're experiencing right now, whatever they have been able to accomplish, someone looks up to them and someone wants to be coached by them. So helping them get out there before they really even feel like ready, because I still don't feel ready to do anything.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's so true. You never feel ready when it's something outside of your comfort zone. You're never going to be ready until you just do it. And I've been talking about that in a lot of the podcasts up before this, because it keeps coming up with everyone that's just part of entrepreneurship. You just throw yourself out there and just see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really glad that you mentioned that it was a process, that you didn't just have it booked out from the beginning, because I know a lot of people will go into their first business and they become really discouraged when they don't see those immediate results. And so, what do you think it is that kept you going? Or how did you basically maintain positivity during that time where you were building and you weren't really getting the exact outcome that you wanted at the time?
Yeah. I will say I didn't maintain positivity the whole time. I had many breakdowns. I had many days where I was like looking for jobs, applying for jobs, considering going to the interviews. And I think what ultimately kept me going was knowing that actually finding this other kind of work wasn't, it was going to take me backwards, or it was just going to, I knew it wouldn't be a good fit for me. I don't think that the corporate world is bad. I don't think that it's wrong. I think that it's actually perfectly suited for many, many people, but I know myself and I know that the structure of it, like I hated asking for permission for anything. And in the structure that I was in, which is highly regulated, very careful because it's consultancy, you have to please your clients. It was like, you got to ask for permission to do it. You have to ask for permission to send an email. And I was like, this, get me out of here. So that was a tangent. But I didn't maintain happiness the whole time, because I didn't have the tools that I have access to now. But I think what ultimately kept me going was just knowing that, like, that's not an option. No matter how close I got to pursuing it, going down the road of going back to being an actuary or even like going into marketing, I considered that a lot. It wasn't an option. So what I did, and you know, I don't think people should try to do what I did because I know what I did wrong. Like there's a portion of my journey where I'm like, no, you can do this. But like if we talk about the whole journey, I took on every paying opportunity I could find because I was really desperate for money, because I wanted to, not because I necessarily needed it, but because I wanted to prove that I could do it. And so, in order to prove it, I was still saying yes to everything instead of really focusing on what I wanted to do, how I wanted to make money, who I wanted to serve, and how I could serve them and getting the results that they wanted. So, I think the only reason why I've been able to persevere is just knowing that, like, I can't go back and do work for someone else. And so I was able to sustain myself somehow until I finally, I hired a coach and they were like, stop trying to do everything, stop listening to everyone, and stop like buying off of the discount rack and piecing together the solution. Listen to me and focus on this one thing and stay consistent and persist with it even when you feel like giving up. And I think that's the hardest thing for most people is like when you launch something and you're really excited and you poured your heart and your soul into it and then no one buys, you want to give up right away. And we can't use that feedback, that initial feedback, as a reason to stop. It's a reason to keep going, especially if you have done the due diligence of validating that this idea is needed and people are willing to pay for it.
Yes. Yes, yes. And I was mentioning in the last podcast that a lot of times it just doesn't work the first launch, but it's really not about your product or even about you. It's just either the timing or the messaging. And those things
Mhm.
can be tweaked very easily. And then people will take the no sales as a reason to not be an entrepreneur. And I love how
Mhm.
you say, I basically just burned the bridges and didn't really consider that as an option, because when you actually put yourself in that point of view, like, if I did go back, would I be happy? And it's no. The answer is typically no. If you find your way to entrepreneurship, it's because you're being called to it. And so I think a lot of people don't have it in them to ask for permission to write an email and to be, I don't want to say a follower, but more like a, not the leader, not the one who's calling the shots. And I can even see in your birth chart, you have your sun aligned with your ascendant. This is a sign of a leader. So I think that it's really important for you to have your own business, or at least to lead people in some respect. So I can definitely see in your chart that you don't have it in you to be working at just a normal corporate job. So it's funny how you find your way. Like, you go down the
Mhm.
wrong path and you realize, oh, that wasn't it. And then you slowly find the right path by sort of rectifying over time. And also, I like how you mentioned that you took on a lot of clients that maybe didn't fit your ideal client, or you just kind of would jump at all the opportunities, because I'm sure that there are a lot of people out there who are just starting, who feel the desire to, yeah, to prove it to themselves, to make money, to prove it to other people, to, or if they quit their job, to even feed themselves. And
Mhm.
I think it's important when you make decisions from that place of, like, of scarcity, because it's almost like a fear that there won't be the ideal customer coming if you say no to this person. Ask yourself the question, what do I want to be known for? What do I want to stand for? Because then I think it's easier to sort of find the people that align with you, and it'll be easier for you to say no to the people who don't align with you, because that doesn't really match what you want to be known for. And so I think that that's hard to do at first, but and it becomes a lot easier over time after you gain a confidence and you make more of a name for yourself. So I love that you share that part of your journey, because I think that's something that a lot of us go through. And it's kind of like the ugly behind the scenes stuff of business that people don't really like to talk about. But I think it's important so that people know that if they have those same experiences, that, it's just part of it. And to just have more confidence within yourself and like realign with what your message is and who you're really calling in.
Mhm. And I will say, just to add to that, because I think a lot of people, I just had a conversation with a client yesterday or 2 days ago regarding, her concern around should I go find a full time job so that I can, make some money, or should I fully focus and hone in on building my course that I want to build? And I do think, obviously from my experience, from what I personally went through, I was saying yes to things because I was trying to like make as much money as possible, and I wasn't willing to sacrifice and scale back even though I could financially, because I got to the point where, I have been living abroad for the last like 2 to 3 years now. And when we were living in Italy, we've recently moved to Zurich, Switzerland, but when we were living in Italy, I wasn't paying rent because I was just living with my fiance, and he was like, "Well, same. You just moved in, but I can just still keep covering rent." And it was really cheap. And so my condo in Chicago was fully rented out through Airbnb, and I didn't have any expenses in regards to like what people's normal expenses were. So in terms of like needing to take on things, in a lot of ways I was just taking things on because I was like, that's going to make me more successful, I'm going to reach like more income, higher income months. Whereas some people I know, and this did happen to me prior to, where you do need to make money to take care of yourself. And so this client who is like, should I get a job versus should I continue pursuing, because I won't have the time to pursue this if I do take a full-time job. My opportunity that I present to her is first and foremost, like, there is the challenge of, is this aligned and I really want to do it? Versus, and are the things that I'm going to have to do to accomplish it just outside of my comfort zone? Or are the things that I'm going to have to do to accomplish it actually going to put me in harm's way in terms of my life, my health, my both mental and physical well-being? And so for some people, like, I definitely will not tell someone to quit their job with no plan, no source of income when they have bills to pay, no backup plan, no emergency fund to pursue a business that they still have to go through the process of validating the income opportunity. And I think that's a really good gauge, is like, even if you have quit your job like I did, but then you had to take on an opportunity that wasn't in direct alignment with like your ideal client, you can just consider that as like, that's my side hustle, or that's my angel investor. Like, I like to think of, if you keep your full-time job, your 9 to 5 that has a predictable paycheck, if you keep it, you just think of it as your angel investor, and then you burn the midnight oil and work on building your business on the side. And so what I offered to my client is like, if you're in a position right now where you absolutely need income and it would do you better because it needs to take care of your physical and mental health and well-being to get this job, then get it. But knowing that you still want to build this business, then you have to decide, am I willing to go outside of my comfort zone in terms of nights and weekends to work this, to make it work? Alternatively, if like she doesn't need that excess income and she's willing to go outside of her comfort zone and be like, okay, my health and well-being, my mental and physical, all my like standard needs are met, but I might need to reduce my luxurious lifestyle, but I'm willing to do that and go outside of my comfort zone that way while I build this business, that's another thing. So it's also determining like, where's your comfort zone? Anything you want to pursue isn't going to feel fully in alignment because something is going to make you uncomfortable. Like, it might be in alignment, I mean, in terms of your birth chart, but it's still going to not feel like, you can't always tell if this is a discomfort because it's just challenging me, or is this a discomfort because I'm not aligned with it? But don't get those mistaken, because there is always going to be this like uncomfortable feeling, because that's the only way we grow. So make sure that you're being really using a lot of discernment to determine what the answer is, and also make sure to take care of your mental and physical health and well-being.
Yeah, and that's a part of the reason why being an entrepreneur is actually one of the best ways to fast track your personal development, because
Yeah.
there's no way to get to know yourself better than through being an entrepreneur, because all the results around you are from your inner world and what's happening within you. And so being able to reframe your mindset around what your side job is doing for your business is really powerful. Like you said, thinking of it as an angel investor, thinking of it like being grateful for it instead of being upset that you have to go and work your job and then go back to the thing that you want to do, which is your business. Think of it as allowing you to operate in your business with more freedom and to actually give more creativity and abundant energy to what you're doing instead of coming at it from the point of view of I have to survive with this and then putting all that pressure on something that's just being born. Like you wouldn't do that to a baby and you shouldn't do
Mm.
that to your business being born. So I think that's really good advice. And then also recognizing like where you feel more comfortable pulling back. I think that's important. Like it could either be, you pulling back financially or, pulling back on your time and really like your free time and really spending that all those waking hours in your business. I think that's a really key point. And then being able to use your discernment about what's uncomfortable versus what is out of alignment is super key. And that's why I mentioned the thing about personal development is because you really have to be in tune with your own intuition and begin to understand like which things are growing you and like challenging you and then what things are actually just again like not in alignment with who you are and where you want to go. And so I think
Mhm.
it's always important to think about it in terms of like the future. So if you were in the future right now looking back at the kind of steps that you're taking, is that going to get you to where you want to be? And if it's not, like then maybe that's actually something out of alignment.
Yeah.
So I think those are really great things to mention. So I know that you talked about you were just speaking with a client the other day, and I know that you're specifically helping money coaches, but you did also help people with their business finances. So I was hoping you could discuss like what are some of the biggest mistakes you see people making in regards to their money, their mindset, and their business.
Mm. I think there's so many. And we can start with pricing, because pricing is something I'm super passionate about. I actually wrote, I guess it's like an ebook, but it's just a Google document that you can then download, and then it's an ebook. But it allows me to make updates as they come to me. And I wrote this ebook called the Online Coaches Pricing Workbook, and it's a workbook too. You can like type into it and stuff. But it really helps people with setting their prices. And I should probably update with some of these things, because I do talk about some of the like pricing mindset that you need to be in, and some of the big pricing mistakes I see people make. And the one, like the very first one, is just not having your own high sense of self and belief in yourself and what you're offering, to the point where then you don't charge for it, or you don't charge enough for it. And this can be really, really difficult, because then we take money and we align it so much with our own self-worth and what we can provide. And so the way that I approach the with the workbook is helping you actually take like separate feelings from your numbers, and then just do the numbers, and you can use that to help you determine a business minded price, so that you can go into your business, your businessman mindset, and go, of course I need to make this so that I can actually have a sustainable business. But it can still be hard, because then you get on a sales call and you're like, my price is, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And the second mistake that a lot of people do, and this is something that I've really come to learn from some mentors of mine, is like they said it and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I've done that so many times," is we assume how much people can afford. And I believe I did mention this in the workbook in maybe different words, but we make assumptions about what people are willing to pay us or how much how much they think our services are worth before we even give them the price point. And so, like, for so long, I would kind of like say the price and then I would immediately be like, oh, but there's some payment plans and then we can do this and this. And then I'd like talk myself into a lower price. And I know so many other people do that. We just assume that people can't afford us already. Or if we charged really how much we know we should be charging because we have worked with a mentor who's like, some of my other clients are charging this, or we just see other people charging those high of rates and we can't even comprehend how we could do that, we then just assume like, okay, well, I'd like to charge that, but I know my clients can't afford it. And so we just like immediately nix our prices. And especially in those sales calls, we just like talk ourselves down before we even say, like, what if you just said that, like, pie in the sky, I doubt I could ever even get this. Like, I doubt anyone can afford it. But what if you just said it and you were like, my price is $5,000. And then you just didn't say anything. But so few of us have the guts to do that, but that's like what we need to work on. And so the two big mistakes in terms of pricing is not pricing at all, or pricing like way undercutting. And then when you actually get on the sales call and you finally decided like, nope, I'm going to price my highest amount, what I really think I need for my business and what I've seen other people value this work at, I'm going to stick with it. But then we immediately bring it back down because we're like, oh, but they're not going to be able to afford that. And this happens so much with money coaches, but it happens with everyone. um and then some other mistakes just in terms of money in general. I mean, there's so many mindset mistakes. Um, and these are just pre-wired in us. And I love the saying, it's not your fault that you have these beliefs that money is hard, or that you have to work really hard for money, or that wealthy people are bad, or they do have to do bad things in order to get that money. It's not your fault that you have these deeply subconscious beliefs, but it is your responsibility to work through them and to release them. So it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility now. So once you recognize these beliefs, you don't have to take it to heart and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I believe this. Like, I need to get it out of me. Like, you don't have to take it personally because it's not your fault. It was programmed in you in past lives, or generationally, or just when you were 5 years old and you witnessed your dad coming home with concrete on his pants, and you made the connection that, oh, if we want to be successful, we have to come home with concrete on our pants, at 9 p.m. because we worked all day in the sun and now we are like extra tan, which I will never be, no matter how hard I try. Um, so a lot of those mindset pieces, I mean, we all have so many blocks and mindset hurdles when it comes to pricing, just because, or when it comes to money in general, because money is such an emotional topic, because it is one of the key components to human survival. And it's not necessarily like, tangibly it's not, but it's a middleman. So technically we could survive without money if we could learn how to like, you know, hunt and farm and till our land, and live in a cave. But we've evolved. I was like, evolutionized? No, that's not the right word. We've evolved to the point where now we believe and we put so much importance into money now, that now we have deemed money as something that we need. It's a means of survival. And so then there's a ton of emotion and program beliefs around it. And it comes from, however far back you want to go, you probably are carrying those beliefs around with you.
Yeah. And I feel like that's an important thing to keep in mind. If you want to actually tackle your pricing, you have to examine the emotions that you're putting onto the money. Because if you're putting your own self worth or like love or value in some respect, then you're going to price yourself lower, because maybe you'll think that something about you isn't worth that. And it's not true. And I know that Tess had a whole podcast about, don't say charge what you're worth, because your worth is infinite. And I think that that is so important, because everyone throws that around, charge what you're worth, charge what you're worth. But really, what you're charging for is the transformation that you're giving people. And I know that people at first are very scared to kind of own that price and determine what that is, what that tangible number is for a transformation, because maybe you've had less clients and you're just starting out, or you're just not as confident. But I think over time it should hopefully get easier. Kind of jumping off the first thing that you said, that people are pricing really low. I've noticed that happens a lot. Like, people will have these really big money goals. I'm like, I want to have a 6-figure year, or I want to make, over 100,000. And then they have like a $37 product. And I'm just thinking, have you actually done the math on that? Because there's just no way that you're going to get to that kind of money with your audience size. Like, it's
Mhm.
probably not going to happen. And I just think that there's such a big disconnect between people's goals and what they actually charge and what they're selling. And I'm not really sure why people don't like sit down and do the math. Have you noticed that with your clients?
Absolutely. Um, I think on one level, it's really just a lack of understanding of how the math fits together. This was something that I was like, of course, people should figure this out. But I also recognize that I'm an actuary. Like, I can't do mental math, by the way, but I had like 3 calculators in my backpack all through college because that math is my life. Like, I analyze and I math shit up all the time. But when I started doing this work, I really quickly realized that people don't think about these things together. And that's one of the other big pricing mistakes that I mentioned in my workbook is people think about like, okay, I want to price my products as this and I really want to make these, I want to hit these goals, and they don't align the two. And so they're not sitting down and going, okay, if I want to have if I want to make 6 figures, if I want to break $100,000 this year, and I'm going to charge $100 for my product, or we use $37, like go even lower, and then we figure out the numbers. You have to sell, if we do 100, because the math will be easier, you have to sell 100 or 1,000 units of your product. And so where are you going to find people to sell 1,000 units to? And for some people this works, this can work because you have a huge audience, but most people don't have a huge audience. And the most controversial thing that I probably say is you don't have to have a big audience to sell, and or you don't have to have a big audience to make 6 figures or to make a really good income, but you got to sell the right thing. And it takes just as much effort to sell a $100 product as it does to sell a $1,000 product. And we could go higher and higher if we want to. It takes just as much effort. And a huge mistake I see people make, and this isn't necessarily a pricing mistake, but even just like a business mistake, is coming out of the gate and offering a lower tiered course and wanting to create a course and sell that, and price it at a couple $100s, thinking that's going to sustain them, which it absolutely can. But we have to recognize that selling a course, especially if you're not going to jump on a sales call with someone and then you kind of put two and two together and go, oh, if I'm committing that much time and energy and effort, I got to sell it for more than a couple $100s. But if you're not jumping on a sales call with someone, your conversion rate is very, very low. And so with courses, you have to have a huge funnel and funnel so many people in, because it's all a numbers game. So you have to recognize how many people just need to know about me, and then be like, okay, I'm interested. And there's only going to be a certain percentage that go, okay, I'm interested. And then who are going to actually buy. And there's only a certain percentage of the people who are interested who are actually going to buy. So once you get that to a point, then you recognize, okay, if only, you know, 2% of the people who I even get exposure to on, on social media or whatever, if only 2% are going to buy and I'm only selling a couple $100 course, is that going to help me reach my goals? And on top of that, it's also recognizing, if you you have to put just as much energy and effort, if not more, to reaching all of those number of people, to getting them into, even knowing about you, to then being interested, to then converting into paying clients. So it's really important to, and this can be like a really hard, tough pill to swallow, to recognize like maybe I should start with a higher touch, higher price product to even validate this concept. And in the meantime, I'll grow my audience and grow my top of mind awareness to people. And then, I'll be able to still make, if you, whether you want to go like $50,000, or if you want to go, okay, my goal is six figures. You'll be able to make six figures if you do a higher touch, higher ticket sales priced product with your small audience. And then you can take it and ratchet it up from there. I don't know words, but scale it up from there. And then you can go into like group offerings, and then you can go into courses, and that's kind of the seamless trajectory. But so many people see like, oh my gosh, online courses can be so easy. I'll just build it and then I'll make money. And usually that's when you launch, you hear nothing, and then we give up. And I've done that so many times, and I'm just speaking from experience.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have definitely done that too as well. And I think as long as you know the numbers, it's much easier to start to plug things in. So if you guys didn't catch that, Tess said that the industry average conversion rate is 2%. And
That's not,
so
I don't think that's industry average. I don't know the industry average.
it is the industry average, at
Oh,
least for
perfect.
email. So that was correct. Yeah. So at least for email, it's typically like 1 to 2%. Maybe off of like a live webinar, it could be like 5%, but it's
Mhm.
relatively low. For social media, it's 0.05%. So if you're trying to build up your social media and not funneling them into an email list, you're making a mistake because those numbers are a lot lower. So once you have these, you can start to multiply it by how many people, like how much money you want to make, and then how many people you need to get into your funnel. And then you decide how much your product is. And
Mhm.
then I love how you said, go high touch and then create the course. Because once you have a service with someone and you work one on one with them and you're really high touch and in there and creating deep transformations for, a group of people or for a couple of people, then you have an idea of the similar threads of issues that that type of person has. And then the course is born very naturally out of that. So if you
Mhm.
jump straight into the course, unless it's sort of based off of the previous version of yourself, which I think you can do if you know that other people are like you, then you can base it off of the previous version of yourself. But a lot of times you can sort of miss the mark by thinking that you know what people need, and maybe people actually do need that, but normally the problem is that people are looking for something different. So like
Yes.
you actually need to kind of reel them in by knowing exactly what they want and what they're looking for, and then giving them what they need in the course along with what they
Right.
want.
Right. Just to speak to that, it's totally true. Oftentimes we want to sell people like the medicine, or even sell them the mode to their transformation, but they don't think that's what they are looking for, because they don't have the consciousness that you have to know that, like, even if you wanted to, I think your target client is very much spiritual, but like if you knew that, doing mindset work was the solution to someone's, like, let's say I'm trying to sell my mom a weight loss, a weight, like healthy eating and exercise, like her goal would to be to lose weight, and I'm trying to sell her on that transformation, and I know that it's so much more about what's going on subconsciously than her actual like dieting and exercise, and we can then like tackle that, but she's just looking for like a meal plan. It's like I can't be like, it's just the mindset. Hire me and I'll work with you. Like, I can't even call myself a mindset coach, even if that's what I do, because she's going to be like, I don't need a mindset coach. Why is this person trying to sell me? Oh my God, they're sleazy and salesy. Like, that's how you get into that. So, a lot of people are fearful of like being sleazy, being salesy. And what happens, there's so many reasons why we have these negative connotations and how people come off as sleazy and salesy, which, like, you can make sales, you can do direct outreach without even being sleazy or salesy, but people just do it wrong so often. But one of the big reasons is because they might know what someone needs and what someone is looking for, and they're trying to like push this solution down their throat without even getting the trust from them. And so like sometimes for people to, the the principles of marketing are know, like, and trust you, right? And then they might actually buy from you. And then once they buy from you, they trust you. Now you give them the pill of mindset. And you can also still be in integrity and be like, I'm also going to help you with um, I don't know what legally even like health coaches can offer in terms of nutrition, but like with nutrition and exercise. But we're really going to start with the mindset stuff because that's important, and help them understand that, because now they trust you and they're bought in. But you're not going to have any success going to them with like, let me sell you the solutions of this higher level of consciousness that I'm at, because I know I've experienced it. And they're going to be like, no, get out of here. What are you doing? My mom would think I was crazy.
A while ago, you mentioned that one of the money mistakes you see people make is that they are thinking that their clients can't afford something. They're just kind of assuming that they can't afford it. And I wanted to bring this up because when you're doing like these high touch services, you're probably going to be charging quite a bit, and it's going to feel uncomfortable to ask for that kind of money. But it's really good to start off that way and then, move to courses, which you can make cheaper because you can reach a little bit of a wider audience. But at first, since you're just starting off your business, you might feel more uncomfortable asking for that kind of price. Someone is always going to think that they can't afford something that they don't value. So if they really value you, they will work with you and they will find the way to have the money, even if it's a stretch for them. And because I have done that, and I'm sure, Tess, you've done that too. And so have you noticed that like when people first start out that they're giving a lot of stuff away for free? And what do you think about going the free route before they build the confidence to ask for those big prices?
I am totally comfortable with having someone test out, especially if you're just getting started and you just want to like test out your own skills at delivering the material, or if you're going to be a coach at actually coaching someone. I'm really in favor of doing that pro bono, but you got to max it at like 2 people, right? And then after the 2 people, that's when we got to go to the paid, because then you'll never know when you're ready, right? So if you decide that after 2 pro bono clients, you're ready, you will be ready, because we will allow ourselves to take as much time as we are allotting to ourselves to accomplish something. What is that? Parkinson's law. And so if you decide, okay, only 2, so these better, I better like get the skills, I better learn my lessons, I better ask for feedback, and you also better ask them to provide you with a video testimonial because you're doing them a great service there. But ask for feedback as well on how you can improve, so that by the 3rd client you're charging. And I also, if you don't want to offer pro bono, don't. But you can absolutely offer something at like a beta testing round and say like, I'm offering my first 5 clients or my first 5 students, they're getting it at a beta rate because I really am making sure that this is the best program possible. And so I'm still testing out a few things. So I want to get feedback and also a testimonial. But we can't just continue running our business at these discounted prices, because you're doing a disservice to yourself. You're also doing a disservice to the entire industry, and you're probably doing a disservice to your ideal client, because if they can't value the thing about coaching too, or offering, like, even people who have online courses, they're offering a really great deal of coaching because they're offering an educational experience. They're usually offering some sort of container of support. And so the value that people get out of coaching is significant. And them being willing to invest in you and get the education is only one part, but it's also them showing that they are worth this transformation. That they, if I'm going to charge $5,000 to help you, I don't even know what the price points are for like health coaching, but if I'm going to offer a package of for $5,000 to my mom, not my actual mom, but like the ideal client might be someone like my mom, she has to decide personally if it's worth it for her to pay something to access the support of me. Once she pays for my coaching package, I'm going to pour my heart and soul into her. I'm going to hold the space for her. I'm going to see her vision and see her goals and actually see her achieving them. And if I can believe that she can achieve them, it makes it so much more likely that she will achieve them. And that's like, hiring a coach or investing in yourself is such an act of self-love. And so if you can reposition that for your clients so that they can see it, like you're not charging them, let's say my beta rate is going to be 2,500 and then my full rate is 5,000. I'm not charging them 5,000 because, or I'm not going to discount it because it's, how do I want to phrase this? I don't want to charge them half the amount because it's not only like not going to do it for me, I need to make that money, but it's also for them so that they can prove to themselves that they're worth the full 5,000. And that 5,000 is going to purchase slots on my calendar where I'm going to show up and be able to hold their vision for what they want to accomplish. I'm going to show up and I'm going to give them guidance. I'm going to encourage them. I'm going to work through any sort of limitations that they might have. I'm going to offer them whatever the additional resources are that I can offer. But that's an investment they're making into themselves. It's not necessarily an investment they're making into me, although the money is going into my pocket. They're also getting extreme value in return.
Yeah, and they show up differently. Like the
Mm-hmm.
more money that you put towards something, you just show up on a whole other level. Like imagine a freebie and then imagine paying $200 for that same thing. It could have the same, honestly, it could have the same value and the same content. But at the end of the day, you're just promising and ensuring that you're going to actually follow through and take the action necessary to get the transformation when you put enough money down. And I've noticed that with myself. I'm like, I know I could probably find all this information online, but I'm going to purposely buy this course so that it's A, organized, B, all in one place, and buy a teacher I like, and C, because I know when I have some skin in the game, I'm going to actually put in the work to get the results. And so that's why it's also important to charge a little bit more or to charge, enough for these high touch services, because if you don't, you're going to have less quality people and they're going to have less results because they're not going to show up in the same way. And then it's going to reflect poorly on you. And it's honestly just going to be like more of a downward spiral. So you're really doing them a service by having those prices. And I think coming into it with that mindset can really help.
Yeah. I'm looking up a quote that I wrote down the other day because I think it's really important. So many people think about their service as like, well, anyone could just access this stuff on Google, or your client might be coming to you, or potential client might be coming to you and then being like, well, can I just find this stuff on Google? And I wrote this down. Information doesn't create transformation. It's very different. Like, yeah, you can go out and you can find all this information, but the transformation happens when you actually put it into practice, when you actually execute upon it. And I want to hear from anyone who's actually downloaded a freebie off of the internet and found it A, useful enough to actually implement it, or B, if it was useful, have actually implemented it. Because most likely, you probably haven't, because we have no reason to take action upon it. There's nothing where we've put skin in the game to be like, okay, now I have to do it. We don't have someone holding us accountable to it. And when we get tripped up about like, okay, I did what they said, but now I'm confused, who's going to help support us of overcoming those obstacles? And so that's what you get when you decide, okay, I'm just going to do things for free. And I say this because like I was the person who thought for so long, I'm just gonna Google it. You can find all the answers on YouTube, because I was a frugal, I don't know if I can swear, but I was frugal AF for so long because like, and I was a money coach. So I was like, oh my gosh, I can't spend that much money on things. And once I decided that I was worth like, and I did the same stuff with, clothes and designer goods. And not saying that you have to buy like a designer bag if you don't really don't value that. But if you've been thinking about a designer bag and you look at it, but you don't feel worthy of having it, that's what you tell yourself when you look at it, but you don't buy it. And instead you go to Target and you buy the same like $20 bag and you carry it around and you wish it was a designer bag. That's really you just deciding that I'm not worthy of having that bag, so I went and bought this bag. And like, I know there's a difference between can afford and can't, but like, we also can afford whatever we want, right? We can't afford everything that we want, but we can afford whatever we want. It just ultimately depends on what we prioritize. So for me, I prioritized just like having money in my bank and thinking that that was going to help me feel worthy of having money in the bank and then carrying around my Target bag, until one day I was like, fuck it. I want the designer bag. Like, I deserve it. And I'm sick of just having money in the bank. Like, okay, champagne problems. But even for someone who had money in the bank, I was not allowing myself to have that. I was not allowing myself to invest in that. And I did the same thing with courses and programs and hiring coaches. I rarely buy low priced offerings. And I never download things for free, because now the way that I search for information is like, I do just in time investments. So if I'm like, I want to figure out how to get better on LinkedIn, I see a course pop up, because like when I think about it, then it manifests, and then I'm like, oh, there we go. And I buy the course. Like, I don't even really think twice about it, because now I'm just like, I'm worth it. However much it is, I'm going to buy it because I know that I'm going to use it and put it into practice now. And so no longer am I buying things because I think I need them. I buy things when I know I need them. And I don't care about the price anymore, because I know that it's worth it to me, because I know I need it at that time. So sorry for the
Yes.
rant, but that's what,
No,
that's
no,
what it's
none
all
of this is a
about.
rant. It's all golden nuggets. I'm so glad that you're sharing this. So I have two comments. So first of all, it's also an act of scarcity to think like, oh, I don't want to invest in this because I can find it online, and then trying to do it all like DIY and save a buck. Because when you hold on to money and you don't let it flow through you, I am a firm believer that it doesn't flow to you. So I think it's like this cyclical nature. So when you're not spending money, you're not receiving money, because you're sort of like putting this energetic block or constraint where things can't flow. And so I think it's really important to circulate money. Like money, in my personal opinion, I don't know what you think about this as a money coach. I think that money is infinite because it's not a finite resource, because it just keeps circulating. So I think that if we keep spending and receiving, it's just like blood. It just keeps going through our body. It's not going to run out. And so I think coming from it from that mindset is really important. And then also in tandem with the other mindset of, I'm going to buy the things that I really need and value.
Just in time learning.
Yeah, and I've definitely been guilty of this. Like, I'm in Gemini, I love to learn, and I just collect all these things, and I'm like, okay, now I have all these courses to finish, and I feel overwhelmed because I haven't finished them. And I love that concept, because when you buy something when you really need it, you value it so much more. You actually go through and you implement it, and then once you're done implementing it, then you can move on. And so that's something that I'm definitely working on. I struggle with that, to be totally transparent, and I really admire that mindset, because I think that that is like a great way to spend your money. You're still spending it freely. Like you said, I don't care about spending that, but it's just you're spending it in a way that you're really putting all of your love and energy into what you're buying.
Mm-hmm.
So like you're getting that back. You know, it's like when you make a purchase, how do you feel about buying that thing? Are you excited about having it? Because then it's totally worth the money. But if you don't feel that excited, then it's like that time to reassess like what your values are and whether or not it's the time to buy that thing.
Yeah. I love that. I think two things with your first point regarding money being infinite, right? That's what you were saying. If you think about it, if none of us believed that money was infinite, and we just didn't spend money, or we didn't spend money on excess things, like we didn't spend over our means, or and I don't think we should be spending beyond our means. I think a lot of people have the capabilities of spending on bare necessities, and then obviously we spend discretionarily. Like, that's just what we do. And so if none of us spent discretionarily, there would be like an entire portion of our economy that just wouldn't exist. And if we really didn't think money was infinite, we couldn't even spend, like, we didn't even spend on on basic things, like instead we were the hunters and gatherers and we went back into the olden times, then money wouldn't exist. We wouldn't have like the economy that we have, and money wouldn't exist. So the existence of money is based on the fact that money is infinite, that it has to flow somewhere, it has to go somewhere. And by you contributing to the economy can also contribute back to you. But you just have to understand how to leverage that. And building a business is a perfect way to do it. Getting a job is another way to do it. But like, even if you have a job, if you have a corporate job where someone else covers your salary, maybe you have a job where you work for a small business, there has to be people who think money is infinite, because then they're going to be the ones that keep you employed. So if we think that like money is scarce and we don't have access to it, then or you can't tap into opportunities to make it, then you're not going to make it. And if we all thought that way, then none of us would make it. And then we'd be, hunting and finding fruits in the forest. I think what ends up happening is we ultimately get to a point, especially if you're not making a lot of money, you get to a point where you just want what you can't have, right? And so that builds up so much that then when you have the opportunity, you spend beyond your means, or you spend all the excess money, and then you get into this downward spiral, as you mentioned, where then money feels and really becomes and starts to feel scarce. And if instead we could all kind of flip into, which, like, this is hard, we've gotten into such a high consumer society that now it's really hard to be like, to have some discernment between what do I actually need right now, and what is everything that I want because everyone else seems to have it, or because it is holding the answers to all my problems, right? And so when we feel scarce with information, especially in business, when you feel like, well, I just don't know enough to get started, so I'm just going to continue to consume. It's the exact same thing when you feel like you don't have enough to be happy. And so you go out and you consume. You go out and you buy clothes, or you buy home decor, or you buy food and you consume food. There's so much in revolving around like how humans behave and how we understand and interpret our current situation that then creates our actual actions. And right now, if you are in a place of unhappiness or unworthiness, and you're starting to recognize that that's leading you to overconsume, then we need to work on your now and get you into a place of, I'm exactly where I need to be. There's nothing out there that I need to know. And if I do find something that's going to, solve a problem, that's where I can allow myself it. But I don't need to, overconsume, because overconsuming on information, getting back to just like business, overconsuming on information just gets you really confused. And then you just feel like you don't know what the first right next step is.
Yeah. And I think that's an important concept, that a lot of times this consumption is really just to appease that side of ourselves that feels like there's not enough, like we're not enough. And the consumption is like a band-aid. It just sort of covers up this underlying dissatisfaction with ourselves or where we're at with our lives. And it doesn't actually allow you to address the real issue.
Yeah.
And then you kind of just go on living in some way that's not really helping you. And like, you're not actually able to fix the part of your life that would make you feel better and do the things that would make you feel good, because you think that the answers are out there and not within you.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
All right. This is really good conversation. So I have an important question. What is a tool or software that you've invested in, or it could even be free, that you think has just been a game changer for you and your business?
Yeah. So my business is pretty lean, and I definitely didn't think, I thought that I had to have all these things in order to like run my business. And I will say that even like some of the things that I have invested in, I don't use to the full potential, because it doesn't take that much money to run a business. Um, But a couple of things that I ended up, I've gone like the free version as far as I can. So I'm going to share the 4 tools that I do use on a regular basis to run my business. And they are Google Drive, because that's where I can like pass documents around with my clients, slash Gmail, like emailing people. I use Asana to be able to manage my like my podcast content calendar as well as my client CRM. So a lot of people think like I need to purchase like this expensive CRM so I can manage my client's progress or manage my leads. Like you can do that all and just like create it in a free task management software or even a spreadsheet if you want to go that route. And I use Asana and I just use the free version. I would pay to level up, but I have no reason to right now. Like I haven't crossed that threshold. And so I haven't yet. The 2 things that I eventually paid for, one was Calendly, because I was using the free version of Calendly. And this is what I was doing because I'm frugal AF. I had 2 Calendly accounts. So I could have a 30-minute booking link for discovery calls and a 1-hour booking link for my podcast interviews. And then I was like, get your shit together, Tess. You can pay $12 a month for Calendly. So I decided to pay, and now I like am obsessed with it because I have all these different calendar bookings because like my first calls are always 90 minutes with clients and then they're 60 minutes. So I wanted to have 2, and then I have my 30-minute discovery calls, but then I have other like 20 to 30-minute calls that people just want to like get on my calendar for. Maybe we want to discuss something. So there's tons of reasons to be able to just like throw someone a booking link, and it's so much better than like emailing back and forth and being like, okay, how does Friday at 3 sound? Oh, you can't do that? Okay, how about Monday at 2 or maybe Wednesday at 5? And it's like, it just doesn't, it's just annoying. Like I'd rather be like, here, pick a time on my calendar that works best for you. So Calendly is one, and I also pay for Zoom because that's where I conduct all of my calls, my coaching calls, my podcast interview. Actually, I do podcast interviews on Skype because I just like haven't switched over, and I don't like that Zoom doesn't split the audio, but that's my own gripe. But Zoom, I did
I
pay
think there is a
for.
way to split the audio
I
now.
need to look into it. I just haven't
Okay.
figured it. I haven't had the
Yeah.
time to Google it, but I know I can just do that. Um, Zoom is one that I paid for, and I don't even think I technically have to, but I guess there's probably some functionality that I don't even realize now that I have access to that I didn't when I was on the free version. But I was on the free version for a long time. So those are the things, that's not everything that I pay for. I definitely pay for a lot of other stuff. But like those are the things that are at the core of running my business that I have paid for that are kind of like ongoing. And then obviously Google and Asana are free, and I don't pay for G Suite, although I'm sure that would be lovely and people probably love it for whatever reason. But I just haven't found a need to do that yet.
Yeah. So I invest in the same things, and they're so key to just keeping track of everything. And Calendly actually is the reason I made that question, because I feel like it saves me so many hours a week that I just wanted to see what other tools other people are using, because why not save yourself hours and hours a week for
Yeah,
something that could be automated?
yeah.
Great. So, what are the next steps for people to take? So, if they're just starting out their business, what are some good money habits to establish now, or things that you'd recommend to do right after this call or soon after?
Yeah. So, along with the pricing and like working on your mindset and really making sure you're charging for what you're offering, I think the other piece is the management of it. And that's where a lot of people, they either don't know or they just full on avoid it because they're terrified of numbers or terrified of moving money around. But what people really need to make sure that they're doing is separating their business money from their personal money. And this is something that I know it takes time. I know it feels scary, but like there's nothing wrong with opening up even if you have to do it on the personal level just to get started, maybe before you set up like your LLC, just open up a secondary personal bank account, which is totally fine. I have 3 personal bank accounts like with like different banks. I'm closing one, but I have no, well, now I have one in Switzerland too, but like that doesn't matter. Um, I think a lot of people get hung up because they don't know if it's allowed. You can totally open up a secondary personal bank account, find an online bank. I love Ally Bank, and that's where your clients or your customers, whoever is paying you, should pay you. And then that's also where you should be spending the money out of. Now, maybe you're not making enough to be able to pay your bills, then just transfer some money from your actual personal bank to the bank that's acting as your business bank, and just be like, I'm my own angel investor. Here's some money, business, but then still use your business to pay your bills. That's the easiest way that you can start separating the finances between business and personal. And it's the biggest mistake that so many business owners make in the beginning is they don't do this, and then they come to tax time and they either don't get to write anything off on their taxes because they haven't organized, or they have to spend hours upon hours figuring out like, what was this for, and was that even a business purchase? I don't really remember, like, I don't know. And it's just a headache. So just get it set up. You have no excuse. And then you can kind of step through the process of like getting an LLC, getting your EIN, which are also very simple processes. Go to your state's website and you can set these up. You can get an EIN for free. You can get your LLC. Like, there's going to be a payment, but a lot of people are like, I need an attorney to do it. And you don't. There's so many helpful resources out there that step you through how to do it. And your state's website is probably the best option to go to, and it can step you through how to actually register. And then once you have that, then you can open up like your business bank account that has like actual business, like that says business on it, which there's not a huge difference between that, other than that way you'll be like legally protected too, if you can move all of your business finances into actually a business bank account that's under your LLC. So that's a little obviously like down the road, but I think so many people make this process way bigger than it is, that then they avoid it, and don't get started with it. And then they are either legally liable to something and their personal wealth is legally liable to it, or it's just a huge headache down the road because they haven't sorted through it.
Yeah, so let me just back up a little bit. And for those of you guys who maybe don't know exactly what an LLC is or
Mhm.
EIN, so an LLC is limited liability company. And that just means, like you were saying, that your personal assets are never at risk if someone sues you, or if you have to file for bankruptcy through your business, or I'm not even sure like all the implications of it.
Yeah, we're not attorneys. We don't need to talk about that, but it protects you. It protects your business from you, and you from your business. It basically gives a designation to your business as this thing, while whereas like you, if you own a home or you have a lot of investments, like you're an external entity.
Yes. And then EIN would just be your business tax number. And it is super easy, guys, to start this. Like, I just went to InkFile and they did it all for me. It just took maybe like 10 minutes. Then I was really able to set up a bank account like within that week and just start sending the money there and transferring money from my personal account there when I had, more expenses than money coming in. And it's a good habit to set up from the beginning. So I
Yeah.
think that's a really great piece of advice. Um,
Oh,
and then
I have a
yeah,
second
go
thing.
ahead. Sure.
Because people get really hung up on the transferring of money. And I know I mentioned like you can easily do that, but something that's really good, because a lot of people like get hung up on paying things automatically, like automatic bill payments or whatever in their personal life. I've had clients that are like, well, I don't want to do that because what if I don't have enough money there? And so that's why I think both for your personal life and your business, you should have like regular money dates. So how much do I have? What's going to be pulled out? What expenses do I have upcoming? And where does the money need to be? And therefore, you're always ahead of it, instead of like, shocker, I got an overdraft fee, right? Like, you just need to move. You just need to actually look. And if you actually look, and you actually look on a regular, time frame, I recommend twice a month. I actually do twice a month for my business and twice a month for my personal, because I need to like consciously separate them. But if you do it, 2 times a month, you'll always be able to be ahead of the game, knowing what do I have? Do I have enough? And if I don't have enough, where does the money need to come from so that I know that I can pay this bill and I don't get like an overdraft charge or, anything scary happens, which it's not usually that scary, but we do want to avoid going down the downward spiral.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that comes to mindset. Like you're not going to actively look into your bank account and see where the money is coming in and out if you have this feeling of dread around
Mm-hmm.
it. So taking the time to work with a money coach like Tess is really powerful, or the coaches that Tess is now coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe she can recommend some money coaches through her work. Or
Yeah.
if you are interested in being a money coach, Tess is going to be so helpful for helping you guys really understand where the people are coming from when it comes to mindset and logging into their bank account and all of the fears or subconscious beliefs, because she's been working with people for so long on this. And I can even see in your birth chart, you have your moon, which is all about like your inner emotional landscape and what fulfills you. Your moon is in the second house, which has to do with our finances. So for you, you actually get a ton of fulfillment through, your possessions, managing your money, and also because you have both your sun and descendant in Taurus. This is the money sign of the zodiac, like the material wealth sign. So basically, everything in your chart is pointing you towards being an incredible money manager, which you can see through this podcast today, and a money coach, and now a coach, a business coach for money coaches. So you just have so much to offer people. And I hope that people check out your services and the new things that you're going to have up to offer money coaches, which I've already seen some of your posts on Instagram and they are so powerful. Guys, go check her out. You really, really need to see her latest posts. And I don't know if it's still available for free, but she does have that pricing workbook that she's referenced various times throughout this podcast. And guys, it is epic and it's not going to be free for long. So make sure you go check that out. Tess, where can people find you? Like, what's your Instagram handle and where can people find that workbook?
Yeah. So my Instagram handle is at Tess_Wicks, Wicks. And the workbook is being charged because you told me I should not offer it for free anymore. So it is, but it's $27, you guys. So this is enough for you to actually read through the whole thing. But it's kind of, I have one free thing available. I've like cut out all of my other freebies because I think that people who pay attention. And so that's why I've charged for this workbook, because I want you to have skin in the game and I want you to take it seriously and go through it. Because it's also dense. It has a ton of value in it. And so you got to be committed to get through it. Like I think a freebie can be one page, but this one you got to pay. Oh, and it's you can find it at wanderwealthy.com/workbook.
Yeah, you guys check out her podcast too. It's called Wander Wealthy. And you guys would really, really benefit from the pricing workbook. I'm telling you guys, it is seriously life changing when it comes to the topic of pricing, because there's a lot of things that maybe you haven't considered. And honestly, it's one of the topics that I find that people don't address enough. So I got super pumped when you released it. And I am glad that you're charging for it because it's totally worth $27. It's like its own little course. So thank you so much, Tess, for coming on. Is there any last things that you wanted to say to the listeners?
Just make that money. Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I feel like I could talk to you about this forever. But yeah, I'm just honored to be here. And I hope we can, both you and I, but also all your listeners, can just stay connected. And if there's any money problems, send me a message.
Sweet. Thank you so much.
Thank you.